Welcome to today's community call. It is February 8th, 2024. And we interestingly actually have a surprise guest. We have Abi from Swell, well known for their Pearl farming point system with SWETH, and also now for their RSWETH, their restaked form of Swell. So thank you for joining us, Abi. We were just talking before the recording started about, I might need headphones because whenever I have someone on, I get feedback loop. That might be an issue because I don't know where my headphones are. But in the meantime, Abi, I'm gonna go look for my headphones. Would you mind introducing just like RSWETH and like Swell and how the Perl system works? And while you're doing that, I'm gonna go run and try to find my my headphones. Okay, wait. For some reason, I'm not getting your audio though. Properties, Realtek audio, speakers. Okay, try talking now.
We working?
All right, perfect. We're good.
Sweet. GM everyone, thanks for listening in. Thanks for the intro, Stephen. Swell is a liquid staking provider. We just launched RS Suite, which is our liquid restaking token. RS Suite as a product is I guess very similar to what you saw put out by EtherFi. The main difference to sort of taking your LST and restaking it into EigenLayer is that RS Suite is a native restaking product. This means you don't have to deal with things like caps, and what this really means on like the smart contract level is that the ETH that's put into RS Suite is very similar to an LC. It goes into the staking contract, and that ETH is put into the beacon chain. With the main difference from an LST being that the beacon chain validators have their withdrawal address set to an eigenpod, which then eventually, when we enable withdrawals, will go to the withdrawal manager. This enables users to sort of earn pearls, earn restaking, not restaking points, EigenLayer points, and then also take their token and sort of put it into DeFi, which is very cool. And yeah, that's sort of it. With our suite, I think a lot of the innovation on the LRT side is sort of yet to be done. We're working like quite closely with Gauntlet to put together a statistical risk model to sort of look at where the sort of highest risk to reward payouts with the different AVSs are. But saying that, it's quite like a Wild West environment right now with all these different AVSs popping up. So likely at the beginning, we feel that the process will.
Okay, there I've unmuted myself now. What distinguishes? I asked the same question to EigenPy yesterday. What separates restaked Swell ETH from all the competitors in this massively competitive landscape?
Yeah, sure. So I would say there's like a few different types of solutions right now on the market. One is the EigenPy solution, which is like an isolated liquidification of an LSD restaked into EigenLayer. Swell is already sort of working with EigenPy to try and get our TVL up there. It's around 65 million. The main sort of I would say like caveats of this product and what we were discussing before is that I think EigenPy will eventually have to end up picking the LSTs that are most prominent as maintaining the liquidity and DeFi integrations for 10 to 12 tokens. Might be intensive on like the BD, but also on the expense side. The second type of product is these types of liquid wrappers that incorporate multiple LSTs into the one product. This is like Origin's prime staked ETH, and also Kelp DAO in a way. Um,
Oh, does
these
KelpDAO
products,
have some additional like non-traditional LST in it?
I think Kelp DAO is just ST ETH and Stata ETH, right?
Right. So
They
like
don't do
its
native
risk profile
restructuring.
is relatively low, but then as you mentioned, we've seen some of these LOT protocols take in OETH, which is a non-traditional, I guess you could call it liquid staked ETH, though it's not necessarily staked ETH.
Yeah, the Origin ETH integration is like very interesting. It's like you take OETH, which contains some portion of LSTs, but also the Curve LP
Right.
through the AMO, and then you restake that into to EigenLayer. So it's definitely interesting. Um, but yeah, with Kelp DAO, yeah, I think they have the ETH and then also ST Um, and then the third type of product, which is what our suite is, and what we view as like the purest form of both like collateral for AVSs, and also just from a security perspective, is the native restaked LRT. Um, as I was saying before, like what this essentially means is it's essentially the same as an LST, but the withdrawal credentials of each validator are all changed to an eigenpod, which means that, and the reason for that is that's essentially how EigenLayer enforces slashing, is by forcing the validators to withdraw to an eigenpod. They can enforce slashing on the eigenpod level, as I guess it might sound obvious, but
Can
EigenLayer
you
can't
explain
slash
what an
the
eigenpod
conditions.
is? So, admittedly, I am familiar at a very superficial level with all of the EigenLayer infrastructure, but at a like even barely an inch deeper than that, I start to lose facts. So, what is an eigenpod?
Yeah, sure. So an eigenpod um, is essentially a smart contract uh, that facilitates the withdrawal from a beacon chain validator back to the user. The traditional use case before LRTs was essentially to enable users to spin up their own node and then restake into EigenLayer. Because you can't actually restake your ETH, like it's in the beacon chain. That's the whole point of like, liquid staking is that it liquefies that. But to
Right.
actually restake into EigenLayer, um, your withdrawal address has to be pointed towards the eigenpod so that the ETH has to flow through the eigenpod. And by doing that, EigenLayer is able to enforce slashing conditions on your ETH.
So
Um,
the
es-
slashing conditions are on the actual ETH, not on the restaked LST.
what it would be both, right? Like, let's just say, I guess it's different setups, like liquid, like native restaking versus with LSTs. The LST sits in a strategy manager, which fulfills, I'm guessing, a similar a purpose. But I guess the overarching theme is that your assets go into the smart contract. This smart contract is able to sort of listen for these slashing events, and then when you go to withdraw your ETH. If you did get slashed, you'll get out less than you put in. Assuming like, your rewards are less than you got slashed. But that's how they're able to enforce slashing on the smart contract level.
And so, given this infrastructure,
Mm.
we, like I said, we've seen a bunch of competitors, we've seen a bunch of points being distributed, and we've seen a lot of narratives around modularity. I mean, we just saw Dimension launch a few days ago. I know that IBC modularity is not the same as Eigen modularity, but just based off the success of Celestia and the current success of Dimension, without much potential use case, I mean, sure Manta is using Celestia, I think, for just data availability. Uh, what degree of adaptation do you think EigenLayer is going to have? Considering EigenLayer, correct me if I'm wrong, EigenLayer does something very similar to what Celestia does, except EigenLayer is slightly more expensive than Celestia and benefits from ETH security. So there's a narrative, right? ETH being maybe one of the most secured proof of stake blockchains that exists. Getting security from that could be beneficial versus Celestia, which is like an L1 that just gives you remarkably cheap data availability. Where am I wrong? What am I missing? And what is the massive tailwind for EigenLayer?
Right. So when you say EigenLayer, are you specifically referring to Celestia versus EigenDA here?
Well, so that's what I'm trying to understand. I know EigenLayer has not just DA, but also what I would call security, which is like gaining security from these restaked tokens in a way.
Yep.
But please fill in any gaps that you think I may be having.
Cool. Yeah. So I would say like the main distinction here is that you have EigenLayer, which is um not even the security itself. EigenLayer is really just the orchestration layer, which enforces the slashing conditions and provides a sort of architecture for these AVSs, um, which AVS stands for actively validated services, which sounds complicated, but really it just means something that you want to be run by a set of nodes. So let's just say EigenDA in this case is a data availability layer. You have a set of nodes that um, run the actual data availability layer, and so it can be an AVS. A few different examples of like what an AVS could be is like you also have like Espresso, which is decentralized sequencing, where in this case the set of nodes are actually doing the decentralized sequencing, um, which is different to like Arbitrum, where all the sequencing is handled by Arbitrum
Right. So
themselves. At
this
least
is
for now, I
we
think they do
talked
have
about
plans
this
to
with, I forget
decentralize, but
who. I think it was
as far as I know,
oh,
the centralized on Arbitrum is still sequencing. It's
right.
the
Yes.
sequencing on Arbitrum is still centralized.
I was going to mention we had this a very similar conversation with Stater when they came on, where effectively they were saying that like all of these different projects, protocols, infrastructures, they need different things, right? And so Espresso effectively allows for chains to, instead of doing sequencing like Arbitrum does, and I think like Optimism does as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. They can use Espresso, which will probably be remarkably less expensive in terms of infrastructure lift. But my question then would be, wouldn't they end up, and this is not necessarily a bad or a good thing, wouldn't they end up paying a lot of their tokens to something like Espresso in order to have that? And wouldn't that be like net dilutive on whatever the chain's asset? Like the same question comes to Near and to Silo and to whomever else is building. It's a lot of bleeding systems, right? All of their tokens are bleeding into EigenLayer, and then those EigenLayer emissions are going to restakers, but most restakers, I imagine, are either going to be dumping those tokens manually or just having those automatically compounded into their LRT.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like I think it depends on like how your perspective is because let's just take Celestia for example. They have staking, um, and those stakers are potentially dumping the Celestia tokens, and so I think there is a cost to everything. On your point about could a network move to Espresso and it be cheaper? I doubt that because centralized things tend to always be cheaper. Um, the reason why Arbitrum runs their sequencer is because they sort of arbitrage the gas fees on Arbitrum itself, versus the cost to push the fraud proof to mainnet, and that's how the sequencer makes money. It's just like an arbitrage between the cost on the chain versus the cost to prove, like push all of that to mainnet. I think the main benefit of something like Espresso is really decentralization and being able to make the network less reliant on Arbitrum. I wouldn't say it's a cost thing, given there may be sort of like these economies of, I don't know, I think I call them like economies of Ponzi's, but maybe that's the wrong way to put it, where, Espresso may have a token and then, the chain that they're
Right.
decentralized sequencing on may have a token, and
Mm-hmm.
then these costs are sort of subsidized by these tokens
Yeah.
that are
What?
minted, so the
This is
user
actually
of
an
the end experience
interesting
is
question.
better.
I know you guys have spoken to like you. Um, there's an extent to which Swell and the Swell ecosystem works with Sommelier, so you're probably know that Sommelier is going to be one of the very first Ethos partners. And there is like this hesitant anticipation that the SOM token or SOM stakers may receive like an Ethos airdrop when and if that eventually comes. I think like there is going to be this chasing of airdrop narrative, which may end up in like onboarding infrastructure that I won't say is suboptimal because The infrastructure, it's always a grab bag. You never know what's going to be necessarily the best, but it could lead to infrastructure that is chosen by virtue of economics and, like, I don't want to say Ponzi-nomics, but like airdroponomics, rather than genuine best case.
100%. I think that's a huge factor. When it comes to these different AVSs, is like which ones are actually building a good product, where versus which ones are just using um the sort of all this hype behind EigenLayer to sort of bootstrap the adoption of their product in like, I guess, not the best way. This is like something that we're like working on very thoroughly at Swell. Given the information that we have right now, it is still super limited. A lot of these AVSs are very early, but there's like tons of different risk factors that we're looking at. Like, at the base level, each AVS has its own client, and I'm sure if you like if you've looked at like Ethereum mainnet and what recently happened with the execution client bugs. We have no idea what these AVS clients are going to look like. Is an AVS going to have one client? Let's just say EigenDA, it's huge. Will EigenDA have multiple clients? We
Right.
don't know, but there's always this risk of sort of bugs on the client level. And then beyond that, there's also the standard risks of who are actually operating the AVSs, because operators mess up running beacon chain validators, but uh, how are they going to fare when they're having to run, a beacon chain operator plus 10 different AVS services? Um,
So
and these AVS services they don't have experience with.
let me just like, see if I can simplify this as much as possible. An AVS service is literally just like any service that could be offered through EigenLayer node infrastructure. So it could be any
Mm,
service. It could be data availability like EigenDA. It could be sequencing like Espresso. It could be whatever the heck Ethos does. It's any service that can be offered that uses on the back end EigenLayer.
Yeah, correct. The core thing that ties all AVSs together is that their slashing conditions are enforced by EigenLayer smart contracts.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Now, if you let me sidetrack you for one more second, what
Yeah.
is an operator?
So okay, yeah, this is a great question because many people don't have a super great understanding, which is fair enough because EigenLayer is very complex. So when you have an LST restaked into EigenLayer, that LST has its own set of operators which operate the beacon chain nodes. And then when your LST goes into EigenLayer and you restake it, you're going to have this option to delegate to another set of operators. So these operators are, I guess, a bespoke set of operators that take your ETH delegated to them and then restake it into these different AVSs and also run the clients. Um, so there's two sets of operators in EigenLayer. There's the
Okay.
beacon chain
Yep.
operators and there's the AVS layer of operators. Um, and I guess this is one of the benefits of an LRT is that those two sets of operators will likely tend to be the same,
Right.
which offers users a more sort of unified experience from.
So we see like Anchor. We saw Dyke Capital. Good for them. That's incredible that they're on there. This is Donku's. I don't know if you know Donku from
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other
yeah,
days, but good for him.
yeah.
That's
Um,
big. And then I also saw like Puffer on there. Are you guys on there? I don't see you guys, but I imagine you guys could get on there if you
for
wanted to.
as an AVS operator.
Yeah. No. Well, maybe. I mean, whatever. I see AVS. I see rope. I see operator. I imagine this is AVS operators. I see a lot of LST protocols, and then like some just really big name validators like Chorus One, Coinbase, Cosmos Station, DAIC. So is my understanding that there are nodes, right, like Ethereum nodes on
Yeah,
Beacon, and you have validators on there. Then you have operators who then, whatever the word is for, take the restaked ETH and put it into something? Like, do they put it into AVSs? Do they put it into things like nodes? What are they taking the restaked tokens and putting them into such that it mimics node infrastructure?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the way to think about restaking is a little bit different to potentially what you might do in DeFi or what you might do with each staking itself. Because the entire like premise of restaking is taking the same capital and deploying it into multiple things. So instead of deploying your capital, what you're really doing when you're restaking is you're opting in to follow the slashing rules of that AVS. So you're saying, I'm going to run the AVS client, and if I do something wrong, you can slash my capital. Here's my capital. And then you can go and make that sort of, you can imagine it's like a handshake agreement with 10 different AVSs. And now you're restaked into 10 AVSs, but you never really put your capital into that AVS. You just agreed to follow their rules.
So
And so by
there's
breaking them,
no like shift in custody. You're not and not even like custody is not the right word here, but you're not
no.
like committing your assets into some. Would it be a smart contract? Like, are you giving the restaked capital to a smart contract, and then if the operator does something that goes against the rules set by the AVS potentially, then the operator's capital gets slashed.
So you're kind of already in the smart contract, right? You're in the EigenLayer
Right.
smart contract. But given this is like very early and that EigenLayer is still like building out a lot of this, but you can imagine it as an AV, like once you restake to an AVS and you opt in, they get some level of ability to then slash the capital in the EigenLayer smart contract itself. Um,
And the reason you would opt
and
into
that's
an
all. Yeah.
AVS is because you will benefit from whomever is using that AVS as a service.
Yeah, there's a few things. There's obviously, some AVSs are going to have tokens. Some already have dropped their tokens, like alt layer. Um, and then they will sort of use these tokens to incentivize, very similar to any other proof of stake network, like something built on the Cosmos SDK. They all have, the staking module. So you would see like AVSs working um very much the same way. I think the main difference here and the main benefit of EigenLayer is that you don't need to bootstrap your entire network from zero. Um, you get access to, like, I guess you don't get access. You get to present your offer to all the capital in EigenLayer, and if they choose to restake to you, you get that security um, without having to get all of the TVL, which is the cool bit. So let's just say there's 500 billion in EigenLayer. If that 500 billion is restaked to you, um, you can then go and restake that 500 billion into something else. And so it, on an individual AVS level, that AVS may not have to pay as much as they would if they had 500 billion, let's just say staked on a Cosmos SDK chain, whatever. Let's just say the inflation is 10% on the Cosmos SDK chain, then, 500 billion is like, they're going to be paying out 5 billion in staking rewards a year. Whereas on EigenLayer, they may be able to get away with a 1% inflation rate.
Right.
And then you get to that 10% by just restaking between 10 AVSs.
So here we can imagine a new chain. Let's just call it chain X. And
Yeah.
they don't want to have a competitive, let's just say 8 to 20% inflation rate to incentivize staking. They might utilize EigenLayer infrastructure to offset their cost of security.
Yep. That I would say that's one of the core tenets of EigenLayer is enabling um these services or I guess clients to get access to security in a way that is cheaper without actually impacting the security guarantees itself.
And one of the other thing, like data availability, is like not just a meme because we've seen all of these stories come out of entity X, Y, or Z is saving some ridiculous between like 6 and 7 figure value per month or per quarter by switching over
Yeah.
to either EigenDA or Celestia. Uh, what do you think is like the most compelling use case for EigenLayer? And like not just now, but like in the up and coming I don't know, next couple of quarters to next 2 years?
Yeah, sure. So I think the most compelling use case for EigenLayer and the way I think about it is that right now, Ethereum security only backs things that are permissible within the EVM on Ethereum mainnet. Given there's extension to this, like L2s, which either push like a zero knowledge proof or a fraud proof to mainnet, they're able to leverage Ethereum security in some ways with some trust considerations. Um, but really, how I see EigenLayer is it's able to expand the rule set of the EVM without actually changing the EVM. Um, and because that's Ethereum's main strength, right? It may not like quote unquote be the best tech. That's a contentious statement, but it is the biggest and it is most tested. It's been through the most amount of time. It has the most Lindy, and so touching the base layer is, I would say, ill-advised. Because let's just say you want to launch Espresso, uh, you either have to build your own chain or you have to implement either like Triforce Espresso into the rules of the EVM, which I'm sure anyone here who's heard of mainnet gas fees, it's very painful.
I have
Or you
chosen
have
to do nothing
to change.
today because of mainnet
Yeah.
gas fees.
My rewards are less than the cost to claim them. How
Exactly.
unfortunate. Um, but yeah, so like all you have to change how the EVM works, um, which sort of removes all of that Lindy that Ethereum has been able to develop. So I really see it as a way to sort of extend the functionality of the EVM while not changing the EVM and while being able to leverage its security, which is pretty cool. Like you can imagine, let's just say like you're quite close to the sommelier example. So let's just say sommelier turns into an AVS, then you lose all the overhead of having to run this Cosmos SDK chain,
Hmm.
uh, and you may be able to move towards an execution environment that's a lot more efficient. You don't have to deal with things like blocks, um, and you get to you don't have to bootstrap your own set of some validators. You can just use all the restate capital within EigenLayer itself.
So this is one thing that I still don't fully grasp. You're saying you can use all of the restaked capital within EigenLayer. So
Yep.
EigenLayer DA, actually, surprisingly, this makes more sense to me than getting security from EigenLayer itself, because I'm looking at like all these AVSs and none of them like jump out to me as this gives you security. So is there just like this underlying existing security that anything can tap into, or is that like some AVS that protocols, chains, projects would subscribe to? And if so, which AVS would that be?
Sure. So for an AVS to be secure, it has to have capital restake to it. So I guess there's no implicit security in integrating with EigenLayer. You have to provide enough incentives for capital to be restaked to you.
And when you say
Given that,
capital, so
yeah,
an operator, I am imagining, like Chorus One, massive example, I guess. I will
yeah,
say Chorus One got a little bit of FUD. What was it, 2 days ago? I don't know. Whenever Dime
I
came out,
remember.
because they were like the holdup, but we still like Chorus One. So let's say Chorus One, they have the capacity to direct restaked capital towards an AVS. And if an AVS is unattractive for whatever reason, it might not get restaked capital. So a protocol could come online, or sommelier could say, well, we really want to enter into this AVS space, but it's disinteresting because it's not incentivizing enough operator interest. But if it is incentivizing enough AVS interest, then all of a sudden it is being delegated security from an operator. Is that accurate?
Del
Or
uh, I'm just trying to think about delegated security and if there's maybe a better way to put that. So if the incentives are there,
Mhm.
the capital will be restaked into Sommelier, which means that Sommelier inherits the security of the amount
Right.
restate capital
So
that
like
opts into the Sommelier
you
rules.
could imagine Block Demon or Chorus One having, I don't know, 10,000 ETH at their disposal, 10,000 restaked
Yep.
ETH at their disposal, and they could say, okay, we want to diversify. Sommelier is offering a pretty good deal. we're going to give them 2,000 ETH worth of security or restaked ETH.
Kind
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 of.
of. They can
Okay.
do that,
Yeah.
but since they have 10,000, right? They could also give that 10,000 to sommelier and
Mm-hmm.
then go and give that 10,000 to someone else.
Okay. So it's sort of like you have it and now you can give it to everybody.
Correct.
So
And
so
your
there's
risk
really
profile
no
improves
incentive to
when you get
not
more
give it to
people.
everybody.
Well, there is because you can get slashed, right? Let's just say
Right,
sommelier
right,
has a
right.
bug in the
Got it.
client or something goes wrong on sommelier, your entire 10,000 can get slashed now.
Now I'm
Whereas
slowly
if you
starting to understand. Okay, so
if you
the
just delegated
yes,
2,000,
got it. So the incentive has to be worth the risk of slashing
correct. Yeah,
because you could give your security to every AVS if you wanted to, but
you could.
there.
Yeah,
There's no benefit in doing that unless the incentive structure from that AVS outweighs your perceived risk of them causing you a slashing event.
correct. Yeah, it's all about like expected value. On every single time you restake, right? Is the expected value of the rewards that you get greater or less than the expected value of slashing? If the expected value of the rewards are
Yes,
greater,
yes,
then
yes. All
most
right.
likely restake.
I love this. I finally had my like mini aha moment. I'm sorry for anyone who's watching this. I think one, thank you for sticking around. I know this is not what we usually get. Usually it's like we go into yields and look at all the things I'm doing. This is just like a nerd session with Abi, and I greatly appreciate his brain here. And you guys for like bearing with my very slow grasping of this. So I appreciate that. Okay, so I think I get the basic idea. I get the incentive structures. Then we have roll up. So operators, I get enough. AVS, I get enough. I'm not saying like by any means that I'm an expert in them or like I could explain them well, but roll up is the one that we haven't talked about. We have ones like EigenLayer, which are both. They're an AVS and they're roll up. When I hear roll up, I think okay, it's an L2. It's another blockchain. It's like all of these things are blockchains.
Yeah,
Caldera, Silo, Mantle. So my assumption is that it is a blockchain that it's like a whole blockchain that is getting like directly getting its security from EigenLayer operators.
yeah, correct. So I guess quick correction. So alt layer is purely an AVS, but what they do is their AVS's power rollups. So alt
Okay, so
layer
it's like in the
has
same arena
three.
as rollups.
Yeah, correct. So alt
Okay.
layer has three different products. They have let me make sure I got to remember these. They have Mark. Mark is a fast finality layer, so essentially, it's using an alternative network to prove the ZK proofs or whatever, so that the chain gets finality a lot quicker than it would. I'm not sure if you guys have played around much with Ethereum or even something like Optimism or Arbitrum, but the times to finality are actually quite long.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
if you ever deposit it into a centralized exchange, it'll say something like waiting for 1 out of 15 blocks, and you might be wondering,
Yep.
why do I have to wait 15 blocks? And it's because that sort of time is the amount of time that the exchange has to wait to sort of be um, convinced that the block where you transferred your funds to the centralized exchange isn't going to get changed and make your deposit invalid. So there's this concept of like finality, which occurs after the transaction has actually been made. Normally, it can take a few blocks, but with something like uh, if you ever tried like withdrawing funds from like Optimism, it takes quite a while because Optimism uses like a fraud-proof style. But yeah, moving on, they also have. I'm gonna bring this up because it's kind of, it's it's leaving my head as I talk about it. Let me bring up what they have. One second. Yeah, okay. So they have Vital, which is decentralized verification, and they also have Squad, which is decentralized sequencing. So a similar product to Espresso. So what is a rollup? A rollup is exactly as you said, just an L2. But I think what they mean by rollup here is really restaked rollups, which are rollups that are powered by EigenLayer AVSs, either using something like EigenDA for the data availability, or using something like Espresso for like decentralized sequencing. And that's really all I think this um, this section is. I think there's a few like near who aren't in here. I think they're technically in AVS now, because they're using near as sort of like a data availability.
Yeah,
Um,
they were listed as an AVS, which all like
yeah,
throws me off because I thought they were maybe you're right. Maybe that is what they're doing. Because Near had a really like robust securitization system where they were allowing for people to potentially like their goal was to allow people to stake multiple tokens with them, and all of them could in some way secure the network, and then they'd be redistributed. They were like almost something similar to EigenLayer before EigenLayer existed, except without the additional like AVS layer. So maybe it is just they're doing DA, which would make
yeah.
sense for why they're not here. My question to you is like well let's tap into the degen, right? Let's get away from the tech specs, which I love and thank you, and move towards the funny money, like crazy yield, speculative speculation. I have two questions. One of them, clearly, we're going to talk about points because points are interesting. I think it's very strange how the secondary market or prediction markets are pricing them right now. But before we get to points, I want to go back to EigenLayer and ask you. So you clearly have a pretty decent grasp of most of this stuff, and don't let me blow hot air up your butt. I'm just trying to say you clearly know more than I do. When you look at all of these AVSs and you understand that these AVSs will probably have tokens, and these tokens will probably be airdropped or launched or emitted to users of the AVS, or maybe to the operators in some extent, or to uh, whoever has Eigen token whenever that comes out. Which of these AVSs are you most excited about or think will have the best chance at success?
Well, that's an interesting one. Um, Personally, I would say, and this is my personal opinion, may not be correct. I'm pretty bullish on what alt layer is building. I think um building this sort of layer for people to be able to launch L2s is very powerful. You had like Optimism with their super chain, and then you also had Arbitrum now doing stuff with like Arbitrum Nitro with the L3s, um, and building ways for protocols to be able to essentially launch their own L2 very quickly and not have to worry about the overhead of setting up a chain is, I think, very powerful, because there's a lot of protocols that I think could potentially benefit from a chain. Not all of them. Some launch chains when they shouldn't, but I think there are a lot that can benefit
So
from having their own chain infrastructure.
correct me if I'm wrong, but it is almost as if alt layer is to Eigen maybe what dimension is to Celestia. And I'm only saying that because alt layer seems to be infrastructure that allows people to come and set up a chain that has pre-existing finality, pre-existing data availability, and pre-existing security. And so there's a remarkably lower lift to launch a chain. So you go to you want to launch a chain, alt layer allows you to do that pretty quickly. Same goes for launching a chain quickly. You could use Dimension theoretically and get your DA from Celestia. You could also technically get security from Celestia, but I haven't heard that narrative very much.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's also a few like, I guess I want to say like bespoke benefits of using alt layer. Maybe they're bespoke benefits because compared to other Ethereum L2s, but there's obviously things like the super fast time to finality, the decentralized sequencing, and these things that even current really big L2s like Arbitrum and Optimism don't have. Um, Given their probably reasons to not have them.
Now,
Um,
like very quick tangential question on top of that: are there any chains that you know of that are building on top of alt layer?
yeah, Altlayer has a few chains that I think are building on top of them. I gotta find it.
Book demo, test it out.
It's somewhere on there, on their page.
Restaked rollups, right?
Yeah, I think it's in the restake rollup section. Wait, no. I think it's actually in the other side, the RSS.
Roll of stacks? No. So
Uh,
so okay, this is actually really cool. I feel like I'm learning a lot. And again, I apologize for anyone who's coming for yields. We will talk about the yields in the last 5 minutes, I swear. So roll of stacks, so cool. So these are the different stacks, like the
yes.
famous
Yeah.
OP stack, maybe the infamous Polygon CDK, Arbitrum Orbit, and then ZK Syncs ZK stack. So you can choose from any one of these stacks to build your chain. Then you have data availability, interestingly, from a few places. So Celestia, you can even get your DA from Celestia on AllLayer. That's kind of cool. So EigenLayer,
Yeah, correct.
Celestia, Avail, and then Near. I didn't know that Near was actually giving data availability, but now it makes sense why it's an AVS.
Yeah.
Sequencer. So you really can build your very super, oh my gosh, so many different things. You can really build like your super niche or like modular. This is the whole idea of modularity chain using this, and it seems like relatively easily.
Yeah, correct. Correct. Given, yeah, easy is maybe like relative.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, exactly. For someone who's already built like 2 blockchains, it would be presumably easier for them to do this using alt layer the next time. For me, it
yeah,
would be
correct.
impossible. Uh,
Yeah, it's not like one of you can go jump off the score and
I'm just here for the yields,
steal
man.
the toy.
The yields and the narratives. So okay, I'm like I get it. I can see why this is so cool to you. It does really give me the same vibe as Dimension, though of course Dimension is newer. This is pre-existing and the token's already out. Congratulations to everyone who's been airdropped it. I guess like rest in peace if you sold it. It's gonna go to the moon apparently. Very cool. Are there any other protocols like within the Eigen ecosystem? So like Espresso's been one that I've heard talked about a lot. Ethos, clearly I know about this one only because of IBC land and Somalia specifically. So like because they're top of mind, I think well maybe if people are using them, maybe they'll do well. But are there any other ones that you think okay, clear use case, definitely going to be used? Token aside, this is going to be good infrastructure.
Mm, I gotta get to the Eigenlayer website. I need them in front of my face to
I know. I
remind
think
myself.
I when I clicked it, it left.
Let's
Here we go.
get
If I
to
keep
it.
hitting the back button. Yeah. These are the AVSs. If you want
Yeah,
roll ups, I can do those too.
I think blockless is pretty cool. Blockless is like a decentralized execution environment. With the modular proof system. So like you're not sort of, I know ZK is a whole narrative right now, but you can build sort of any proof system into blockless. So if you have something that some type of execution that you don't want running on Ethereum mainnet, you
Mm.
can run it through the blockless set of nodes. They can use like a ZK snark or whatever type of verification method to then push that value to the smart contract. There's also Brevis, which is built by the same team behind Celo Network. I think what they're doing is pretty cool. I don't actually think Brevis is on here, but I think they should be. Brevis is a ZK coprocessor. What that means is essentially it enables you to use uh, historical on-chain data um, and run compute on it off-chain, and then push a ZK proof, which would enable you. Let's just say UniV4 hooks come out, and you want to sort of rebalance your liquidity based on some historical data. You can run that on a Brevis on Brevis and then push that data to the smart contract permissionlessly.
Well, hey, there you go. That sounds like pretty decent infrastructure to have. Now, again, way over my head, so I will continue to listen to this and try to learn on the go here. I want to now jump in the last 5 minutes to your take on some of the economics, which is typically where my mind stays. So we have at this point roughly 1.127 billion points for EigenLayer distributed, which seems like a lot of points. But then when you look at whale market and price them at like 14 cents per point, it's a remarkably low level of incentivization considering how big people anticipate EigenLayer to be. I think if I did my math right, that's something like let me go check. That's something like $177 million, which, yes, it's a lot, but considering like Celestia, I think is in the double digit billions, and EigenLayer is anticipated to be much larger than Celestia. For only $100 million, that's like less than potentially, I don't know, 5% of the FDV. My question to you is: do you think these points are fairly valued? What do you think about the EigenLayer point system? What do you anticipate the airdrop size to be? Is it diluted? Is it overhyped? Are these reasonable estimates? A lot of questions. Feel free to answer any ones that you feel you can speak on.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that I think 14 cents is pretty low, to be honest. I think it's worth a lot more. And while I won't talk to valuations of Eigenlayer. Like, I mean, there is like definitive sort of events that have happened that you can bring a valuation to Eigenlayer points on. Like the alt layer airdrop. 720 points was the minimum. You can just have a look at like what the minimum airdrops were, and then use that to sort of build a valuation on like, how much each point is worth. And they already have a value, given that value was in the past. So if you didn't have them, it may not be as valuable to buy them now, but um, I think it offers at least a framework to start building a valuation for Eigen points. But I would say 14 cents is pretty low. Because
So wait,
Eigen layer.
walk me through that
Yeah.
really quick. You're saying that alt layer was airdropped to people based off of the points, and you're
Yeah.
saying you could potentially value the points based off of that. I I understand that like alt layer like hijacked the eigenlayer point system to use that as a means or vehicle to like do their airdrop data for them. I don't understand how that translates to a point having intrinsic value relative to something like FDV or circulating market cap.
Yeah, so that's like exclusive of the EigenLayer airdrop itself, right? If AVSs are going to be using EigenLayer points to airdrop, then the
I
EigenLayer
see.
points itself must have some value outside of the EigenLayer airdrop. Like if you let's say EigenLayer launches at 0, right? There's
Sure.
likely going to be more airdrops along the way.
I see what you're saying.
And
So the intrinsic value is not a value that is measurable, but it is a value that is uh, observable, right? So we've observed the value through the alt layer airdrop that like for people who don't know, creating airdrop systems, actually you do know, creating airdrop systems is not easy. And it can be incredibly expensive. So being able to outsource airdrop uh, data analytics to like EigenLayer, having them already done this point system, could be a massive benefit to a lot of these protocols that will be incentivizing sort of EigenLayer behavior. And so, like, I guess what and correct me if I'm wrong, Avi, what you're saying here is that the intrinsic value is that there is this pre-existing point system for all of these AVSs to airdrop into, and because there will be a lot of AVSs, and presumably they will have really good valuation, similar to alt layer, though alt layer might be the most interesting. This means that just by farming these points, even if Eigen never drops anything ever, you will have benefited by virtue of airdrops from AVSs.
yeah, I think it's equivalent to like the staked the stake tier narrative. Like,
Right.
tier has its own value, but then also has like some sort of um other value in the airdrops it'll
Yeah,
get.
because there's some point at which it could pay for itself. So if you had staked one TIA, then it would have like already what was the minimum airdrop? Something like 70. You would have already like 30x your investment or 20x your investment had you bought one TIA,
Yeah.
staked it just from the dime airdrop, right? Really weird airdrop mechanics. Let's not get into the politics of that. So you think these are undervalued? I actually sort of agree here, unless they're only going to do like a 5% or below FDV airdrop, which they might do. Who knows? I don't know. Okay. By the way, Celestia FDV 20 billion. I thought that was right. That seemed really high. So EigenLayer is anticipated to be larger than Celestia, larger than 20 billion. So if it's, let's just say 40 billion, which I think is a reasonable estimate, 40 billion, and they're only airdropping 100 million of points, That seems, what is that, 25 bips, I think? Correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like 25 bips. 25 bips of FTV seems low for an airdrop. I
Yeah.
think like most people plan for an airdrop to be at least 1% of FTV, at least like a really big airdrop. I forget what Celestia's was. It would be interesting to go back and see what Celestia's was and then try to anticipate based off of those numbers. Maybe I'll do that just for fun some other time.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I I I, I think personally, I doubt EigenLayer will be like stingy on the airdrop. So much of DeFi, like the future of like France is riding on this
yeah,
on
I know.
this airdrop
Me too.
right now.
Which makes me want to go to whale market and start buying up these points because it seems like they're
Yeah.
undervalued. So like I know we're over time here, but this is such an interesting conversation. Feel free, guys, to stay, leave. I'll be recording this anyways. There are like, from what I understand, there are two major ways to speculate on points. And again, if you have other ways, I'd love to hear them. One is to buy the points on whale market. So you're literally just going out, you're buying like packages of points, all these different offerings at very specific price ranges. That is like relatively straightforward. I will actually, you know what? Let me not speak for future Steven, but I would love to do more content on whale market, even maybe have them in for an AMA because I'm so curious about this particular market. And then there's Pendle, right? Pendle also allows you to go and buy points specifically from LS. Oh, come on. Do I need to go to Mexico real quick? All right. Give me a second. I'm going to Mexico. All right. I'm in Mexico. Hopefully, you guys can still hear me. I'm back. I went to Mexico.
You caught the train to
I
Mexico?
did. Yeah, I got the train. It's a quick train. So you guys are actually on Pendle, so a little bit of overlap here, I think, right? You should be on there.
Sweet is on Pendle. Our
But
Sweet is coming soon.
okay, I was gonna say why not R Suite? I do know a lot of these LRTs are like doing the Arbitrum thing very soon. I think ETH is gonna be the first one to really do their whole Arbitrum push. Would love to see you guys over there. But so the other way is like literally just buying the points to or the rights to the points of these LRTs. So the interesting thing here is like you're not only getting the eigen points, you're per ETH, you're also, and like maybe even boosted eigen points if you do RS ETH because of their ETHX thingy, but also getting the points to their protocol, right? So whether it be Kelp
Yeah.
or Renzo or EtherFi, soon Swell, you're getting all these additional points. And like the way these are priced is totally different because these seem to be pricing these at almost a 10% ROI. And the reason I say this is because like per ETH, you can buy, maybe it's more now, 16. Okay, so 1/16 is what, like 7%? So like 7% ROI, which is pretty good, right? And you know, interest like, so you could, I guess it's almost the same though as the point system that I was looking at from Whales Market, maybe a little bit higher. So like the markets here are pricing the airdrop roughly at 7% ROI on ETH currently. And I think most people are anticipating the EigenLayer airdrop to happen between late March and maybe early May. What do you think about that, by the way, on the dating? Because I've been asking everyone who's like closer and closer to the source.
There's like it's an information black hole, to be honest.
Yeah,
We have no idea.
definitely is.
There's like yeah, there's like I wish I knew, and then I'd be able to get more clarity. But really, to be honest, we have no idea. Hopefully, sometime this year, I'm get like
Yeah, I hope too.
yeah
I hope to. I hope it'll be
yeah
like, you know, we'll get a random huge tailwind that'll rise all ships, and then everyone will go crazy over all of these AVSs. Maybe that'll be the new narrative. People have compared, you know, modularity to the like the right curve ohm fork of this season. It's like, you know, you stake it forever, and then like you're just getting more and more stuff on it. Hopefully it's not true. Hopefully it's not just a gigantic infrastructural Ponzi. But if it is, hey, at least people are building something rather than just like literal Ponzi-nomics. We're
yeah
improving, but hopefully we're improving in a meaningful way.
yeah for
Okay.
sure.
Okay. So multiple ways to do this. I'm not going to bore you guys with all of the yield stuff, even though I know sometimes you come here for that. There is Puffer. I was gonna say I kind of want to launch their LP because they don't have an LP, and I think it could be good because they're so big. It would be fun to like vamp that. Actually, while you're here, I will say I did. Me and my buddy launched your LP, which is restaked Swell ETH. We had great volume on the 1% pool, and now we've moved to the 30 bit pool. Still really good volume. You can see I'm getting over 200% APR. So thank you for building a product that allows me to do
Yeah,
this. It is because of you that I, can pay for my groceries every day from my yield.
that's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, it's really been really great. And so, yeah, man, I just want to give you one last huge thank you for stopping by, for informing me, for doing like explain it to me like I'm five, for all of EigenLayer and modularity. And stop by anytime. You're always a welcome guest, not only during the AMAs and the community calls, but also like anywhere in the dojo. Really appreciate your time and your answers. So thank you.
Appreciate it too. Always great chatting.
And well, I'll give you a chance. Is there anything happening over at Swell that you want to like give a final pitch to? I think you've definitely deserved it or earned it.
Um, I think the coolest thing that we're doing right now is the double pool that we launched with EtherFi on Curve. It's getting double swell points and double EtherFi points, and we're like quite bullish on the concept of launching LRT pools, just because it gives you a way to farm Eigenlayer points in an undiluted way. Um, when you have a traditional LP, which is, let's say half RS suite, half ETH, you're only going to be earning Eigenlayer points on the RS suite side, so you kind of lose, not I guess your capital efficiency when it comes to farming points, which is a weird thing to say, uh, but this is why we sort of launched this dual LRT pool. We'll also be launching one on Maverick as well today. Um, which should be coming very soon. We'll get the same double points. I don't think we've announced that yet, so maybe some alpha for here. But yeah, we'll be getting double points on both the Maverick side, the Swell side, and the EtherFi side.
Will you be
Um,
starting with the high fee tier? And please say yes.
I'm
Only
thinking about
only
the fee.
selfishly for me.
I'm thinking about the high fee tier because
And so
people
like
are, there is this volume regardless.
exactly. So one of the things that I have seen both in the IBC space and the EVM space is that there are many projects that get really ambitious about like swap efficiency, and they will launch at like the 0.5 or 5 bip or 1 bip fee tier, and they do this because like they know they're going to heavily incentivize starting liquidity, and people are going to go in there and not care about the organic yield. But the problem is like once that dies out, well now 100% of the liquidity is dependent on either it be protocol and liquidity, which is like a huge opportunity cost, or it's just like you have to continuously throw tons of incentives at it to keep it sticking there. Whereas if you start off at a high fee tier, there's so much organic yield. You just saw my position. My position is not even a very tight range, and it's getting 200% APR on restake swell ETH, right? Because and that's at the 30 bip fee tier. I start at the 1% fee tier. That got diluted, and then like because you guys had liquidity on other places, it got vamped there, and I had to compete with it with a 30 bip. That's still doing over 200% APR, and like that process of liquidity being attracted to it, it has like I mean, it's not working the millions of dollars, but it has well over six figures of liquidity, just organically coming from all over the place because of this really attractive APR. So all I'm saying is if you can attract people with organic APR, it puts less pressure on any incentivizing assets. Not that it matters because you guys are using points right now, but for like future cases, you start high, work your way low as it like naturally dilutes, and it makes people like me really happy.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I agree, and I think it's a very interesting point. Maybe we're getting too nerdy into liquidity stuff, but
We totally
um,
are. I'm sorry.
I,
I've kept you too long.
no, I was gonna say more nerdy stuff. Like I think what's super interesting as well is like the the arbitrage that you can do regarding fees when it comes to um the gas efficiency of swaps in and of itself. Like let's just say a user goes to an aggregator and they're using the gas free swap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even though the rate on a a dex may be lower than another dex, if the actual gas to execute the swap is lower,
Yep.
the actual final execution rate might be higher, which I think is
Absolutely.
very interesting, and it's why we, I think it's highly possible for us to push the fee higher on the pool we're about to launch on Maverick, because like the equivalent pool is on Curve, and Curve is
Yep.
like notoriously expensive to swap on.
That's right. It was, solid. Say what you will about solidly. I love that they're never stopping. Like they're always in the dojo, like shilling their APRs and yields, and like now they're on a bunch of different platforms, and like their token is 20x since they've started doing that. So congratulations to them. This is one of the points they make over and over and over again, is because of their swap efficiency and gas efficiency. Like they are able to route so much volume from DEX aggregators without really having any particular edge aside from just gas efficiency and like transaction
Yep.
efficiency. So, really fascinating stuff, and we'll see how volume is driven. But if you can drive volume through higher swap fees, then clearly that's a winning strategy because LPers are going to be happy, which is rare to do without hyperinflationary incentives, and then swappers are going to be happy because they're getting the best route.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Totally symbiotic. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. And for everyone else, have a wonderful rest of your night.